Welcome to the Clack Shack, and today I'm going to be working on a few stove covers. For some of y'all, I just wanted to start outside today. One, because I got all the fans running and it's a little quieter out here, but I just wanted to kind of take time to point out that I got up early this morning and the humidity has finally eased up a little bit here. And so I got up this morning and I did my yard work. But anyway, today I've had a few people ask me, they've seen some of my stove covers, seen some of the larger stuff that I engrave, and so I wanted to take a chance to, while I'm working on getting this order complete that I've got 3 more of them I got to finish today. I wanted to do a video and just show everybody how I go about framing an oversized object for the X-Tool D1 and the method that I use. And as always, guys, I'm not a professional, don't work for Lightburn or X-Tool or any of those guys. I work for myself on this stuff, and so I've learned some little tricks and shortcuts, and this is my shortcut that I use that I'm going to be showing you today. So stick around for a few minutes. As you can see, this is a 20.5-inch stove cover that I'm engraving. It's 20.5 inches tall and like right at 30 inches wide. And the way that I do these, of course, is the first thing you got to know is you got to know where the center of your piece is. And so over there earlier, I measured the piece and I marked the center, and I've put myself a real faint pencil mark right here in the middle, so that I can know exactly where the center of this board is. There's 3 things that you got to be concerned about when you're doing something that's larger than the X-Tool, because framing this piece of wood is not an option. You can't do that. It's too big. It's well beyond the limits of the X-Tool. And this goes for like tabletops. I do stove covers, tabletops, any type of countertop, anything that you're working on that is larger than the X-Tool. This is the method that I use, and I would recommend, if you don't have a better way, that maybe you try to use this method as well. So the first thing that you've got to know is where is the center of your workpiece. Okay, once you get the center of your workpiece marked, the next thing that you need to know is where is the center of your workspace. Okay, so I'm going to bounce over to the computer here. And as you can see here in Lightburn, I've got my burn set up. I've got it ready to go. The only thing that I like is getting it into the workspace and getting it burned onto the piece. So what I'm going to do is I want to take and make sure that this design right here is in the middle of my workspace. And then the next thing that I want to do, and I have created on my machine, I have created a center under my save positions here. What I did is I took the work area of the X-Tool D1 and just did a little math, split that in half. And so now what I want to do is I'm going to take this, just as a precaution, I'm going to tell it to move that to the laser position. That way, no matter where this is, even if this is not exactly centered in the workspace of the X-Tool, I just moved my graphic over and made it center around where the laser was located at that time, which is where I told it to go, and is these coordinates here. So now I've got everything should be centered in the software end of it. So now what I've got to do is go over to my laser, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the aiming crosshair that is on the laser for the frame, and I'm going to put that crosshair on that mark that I made on my workpiece. And I'm also going to make sure that the legs are square with the workpiece, and I'll show you how to do that. So my method of making sure that my legs are square with the workpiece are fairly simple. I'm going to take right here, and I use this aluminum ruler, and I just use it as a backstop or a fence, so that I drag those legs up against it and I know that it is square with this piece of wood. And so the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to look and make sure I don't need to move my machine, which I do. The machine needs to come over a little. Okay, and I'm not quite centered on my piece right here because left and right I'm centered, but I still need to move up and down a little. So what I'm going to do to fix that is I'm going to go in my software and I am going to move my machine until I get the laser head lined up with the mark that I made. So I just held control and hit the up arrow. And it's hard to see the lines with the focus set, so I'm going to raise this thing up a little bit so we can see it a little better. So that appears to be very close. So I'm putting my fence back up, just confirming that I am square here. I've got the lasers, if you can see this, I've got the laser, the crosshairs of that laser is now dead on the mark that I made on as far as the center of my workpiece. I did have to push the laser head up just a little bit, and I did that by holding control and hitting one of the directional keys to move it up just one little increment. And so now I am centered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my software for a minute. All right, so since I did manually move the laser using these jog buttons, that means my piece is no longer exactly on top of the laser. So I'm going to select my piece again, and I'm going to move it to the laser's position. Okay, now, if all these buttons done what they're supposed to, this object should be centered in my workspace now. I've confirmed that my X tool is square with my piece of board that I'm fixing to do here. And so I'm going to, just to make sure I didn't mess anything up, I'm going to go ahead and do a frame and just kind of watch and see how that looks. Maybe you can see it a little better with it up like that. So I've got my frame speed turned down, and one more reason why I do that is when I'm working on something like this and I'm not in my enclosure, I don't have anything that's holding the X tool still, so I don't want it jerking around a lot. So that looks fairly well. So now all I gotta do is find my glasses and set my focus, and we'll be ready to go. All right, so I'm going to set the focus simply by dropping the leg out, getting that set, making sure my leg's back secured up. Now this is about a 3-hour burn, so I'm not gonna I'm not gonna make everybody sit here and watch this. You don't get to use any kind of fume extraction on this, by the way, because as you can see, I just got this set on my work table over here. It's too big to go in any enclosure that some of you may have, or to go in my table over here with the vacuum. So you just do what you got to do. That's another reason why the fans are still running, just to keep some air moving around in here so that doesn't smoke me out of my shop. And ordinarily I run air assist on everything, but under the circumstances, I've got my pump mounted over here near my table, so I'm just having to let this run without the air assist, which should be fine. I mean, it does a good job engraving without the air assist. The only thing is it could cause my nozzle to get a little dirt in it, but I'll blow that out once we're done. Okay, so now I started doing the feel, and the way this file's set up, there's a few little small leaves on this little circular decoration that's on there that for some reason are separate, and it tends to do those few leaves and then go back and do the rest of the design, but it's really not a concern. as you can see, it's made some progress. I went into the house, got some tea, and came back. It's going to be a few more hours before that one was done, but just to show you the end work product, I'm going to move over here to my workbench. Alright, this is what the end product will look like once I get this thing put together. This is the Engrave. It's the same design as what I'm doing on that one, and as you can see, it is in the center of the piece. The lettering actually splits the center line between the two center boards, but I've got a company that orders these from me that they sell homes, and it's a housewarming gift, and so I have to do a lot of these. So, but this is the design, and this is what that one will look like once it's complete, and hopefully they'll enjoy it as much as I've enjoyed making it. Well, that's going to conclude today's video, guys. I hope that this helps you out. I know a lot of people were saying that they were struggling with the bigger centering, the bigger things. Like I said, the 3 things to make sure that you know and to make sure you do when you're doing something like this is, 1, make sure you know exactly where the center of your product is, your board, or you know, whatever it may be, mirror, whatever it may be. Make sure you know exactly where the center of it is. The second thing is try to make the graphic small enough that it's not an over concern that you're going to hit the rails or exceed the limitations of the workspace of the X-Tool D1. But I recommend strongly that you start by putting the laser head in the center of the workspace, the doable workspace of the machine, and then make your fine adjustments from there. But always know that if your graphic is, if you only leave like 5 millimeters around your graphic between the graphic and the workspace of the X-Tool, if you move off center 5 millimeters, that could result in a strike of the frame and messing up your graphic. And when you're like me and you're spending hours building these things, you don't want to have to sand it all the way down and start over. So that's the second thing, is to make sure that you leave adequate space around your graphic to avoid hitting the walls of the machine, and that you put your piece in the center of the workspace, and also start that graphic, you know, where the center of the workspace is lined up with the center of the project. That way everything is centered all the way around. And lastly, make sure that the X-Tool is square with the piece that you're engraving, because you don't want to engrave it and then realize that it's twisted, you know, a little bit one way or the other, because even if it's in the center, if your text runs uphill, that's not a good thing. So those are 3 things to remember when you're doing something big like that. And I hope the video helped. If you like the video and like to see more of my little tips of how I do things, hit the subscribe button, and thanks for coming. Have a good day.